listening to Give God 90, where we're not afraid of the tough biblical questions, because we will dig through the language, the culture, and the history to find the truth revealed in the words of our Creator.
I wanna see the light.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting us be part of your day. My name is Jerry Mitchell. Sitting beside me, still listening to the beat of the music, is Myra.
Good morning, everyone.
When we were doing this live on Facebook, you didn't do that kind of stuff.
Oh, sorry.
When we were doing this live on Facebook, you didn't do that. You weren't sitting there bebopping to the music, but because people can't see you now.
Right.
Oh, well. We certainly hope wherever you are and whenever you're hearing this, you're having a good day. Yesterday, we took Blair over to the beach for a little while. I was walking on the beach. Now, there's some interesting history in the Mid-Atlantic. Where we live, there's shipwrecks not terribly far off the coast of either the ocean or the bay, and most of them were merchant ships, and a lot of times the pottery and some other artifacts wash up on the beach, and you can pick those up. A lot of little, very, very rarely are you going to find like a whole plate or a whole teacup, but you find little chunks and bits and pieces, and it's kind of fun to go over and pick that stuff up. You find old bottles that get broken up, when they used to make glass that had a lot of air bubbles in it. That kind of stuff is out there. It's kind of really neat, part of a way to look at history. But as we were almost done, there was this little, I don't say, baby, I guess is a good way to say it, because they're just learning how to crawl, right? Yeah. And they're out there in the wet sand, and they're crawling around. And the father was kind of there with it. And I said, enjoy it while you can, because they don't stay like that. They grow up. And he says, hopefully I have a long time to wait for that, or something like that. I'm like,
we just laughed.
I just laughed and said, yeah, you keep telling yourself that. Because children do have a habit of growing up. And, while that's a good thing, it often happens faster than we expect it to. So as we are teaching, hopefully, our children, you need to make sure what you're teaching them is going to stick, right? And you need to make sure that what sticks with them is what they need to be taught. But you can't teach what you don't know, right?
Right.
So therein lies a little bit of a problem. Not a big problem, not a huge problem, but a little bit of a problem. Because if you can't teach what you don't know, you need to learn it. And here's another thing. When we think about children being obedient, do we have a double standard? We expect our children to, as parents, we expect our children to obey what we say, right? Live by our rules. But do we do the same? I might live by my rules, but am I, living the way I should be living? Because after all, adults are older and wiser, right? Maybe? Sometimes?
I don't know.
You're laughing. Yeah, we've read where parents are to teach their children, but that doesn't mean that children should be seen and not heard. In fact, if you look at where that saying came from, it actually started out as young girls should be seen and not heard, right? And the reason for that saying about a century ago is they honestly believed that young girls didn't have anything to say. Nothing worthwhile came out of a young girl's mouth. So that kind of was, and I'm not sure how I really want to explain it, that belief that began in that culture expanded, and it became to the point, or it came to a point that was only corrected just a very few years ago, like around 1990, and I think Delaware was the last state where a wife couldn't tell her husband no. Marital rape was not a legal issue in Delaware until like the 1990s sometime. Prior to that, husbands had free reign. Well, until the wife really got tired of it and sliced his throat in the middle of the night. But, that did happen. That did happen. It also happened not too far from where I grew up. A lady began to use arsenic in her husband's lunches. And she was a very, very good cook. So good of a cook, in fact, that when she went to prison, they found out that she was poisoning her husband. When she went to prison, they they made her a cook in the kitchen.
It's a little scary.
That is a true story, ladies and gentlemen. I am here to say that is a true story. But children, we really do need to be aware of. We need to hear what they say. We need to answer their questions within reason, and we need to pay attention because we might not be with them all the time. There may be things that are affecting them or causing them harm, and if they're trying to tell you that this is happening, you really should pay attention. But it doesn't mean that we let the tail wag the dog either. The children are the ones who are being instructed. It's the parent's job to teach. And if it's the parent's job to teach, then it's the child's job to learn. Right?
Right.
Does that matter who the parent is? Well, let's look at Deuteronomy 32, verses 1 through 7, and see what we find out.
Hear, heavens, I will speak. Listen, earth, to what I say. My teaching will drop like rain. My words will fall like dew. They will be like showers on the grass. They will pour down like rain on young plants. I will announce the name of the Lord. Praise God, because he is great. He is like a rock. What he does is perfect. He is always fair. He is a faithful God who does no wrong. He is right and fair. They have done evil against him. To their shame, they are no longer his children. They are an evil and lying people. This is not the way to repay the Lord. You are foolish and unwise. He is your father and maker. He made you and formed you. Remember the old days? Think of the years already past. Ask your father. He will tell you. Ask your elders. They will inform you.
So, this is one of the places where it is written that we consider our Creator as our Father, right? But it's not the only place. In Deuteronomy 14:1, we have, you're the children of the Lord your God. When someone dies, don't cut yourselves or shave your heads to show your sadness. You are a holy people. You belong to the Lord your God. He has chosen you from all the people on the earth. Now that statement Moses makes is more direct and to the point than the one that you read a second ago. But it's just, it includes some other things there that confuse people sometimes. It confounds people sometimes. And of course, Solomon, he likes to chime in on these things in Proverbs 3, verses 11 and 12.
My child, do not reject the Lord's discipline, and don't become angry when he corrects you. The Lord corrects those he loves, just as a father corrects the child that he likes.
Isn't that amazing? So when you're being corrected, it's not, a lot of people get this, oh, why me? They like to throw their own little pity parties and say, why me, Lord? What did I do to deserve this? I try to be a good person. I try this, I try that. Well, obviously, you're not doing something right. Chances are you're following your own way and not the way of the Almighty. Now, that should give us something to think about, right? He's going to correct us. He's going to attempt to put us back on the right path. We look at Deuteronomy 31 now, verses 9 through 13.
So Moses wrote down the teachings. He gave them to the priest and all the elders of Israel. The priests are the sons of Levi. They carried the ark of the covenant with the Lord. Then Moses commanded them, "Read these teachings for all of Israel to hear. Do it at the end of every 7 years. That is the year to forget what people owe. Do it during the Feast of Shelters. All the Israelites will come to appear before the Lord your God. They will stand in the place the Lord will choose. Gather all the people, the men, the women, the children, the foreigners living in your towns. Then they can listen and learn to respect the Lord your God. Then they can carefully obey everything in this law. Their children do not know this law. They must hear it. They must learn to respect the Lord your God for as long as they live in the land. It is the land you are crossing the Jordan River to own."
So once every 7 years, the instructions were to be read. And Moses was told that this would be sufficient to instruct the people of how they were designed to live, what they were supposed to do. So everybody who heard it once every 7 years was expected to listen and to learn. That means a child of 7 years old was expected to be able to hear what was read and do what pertains to them. Now, a 20-year-old should be able to hear this. If you're 21, you should have, heard it at least 3 times, right? Because 3 times 7 is 21.
Right.
A 50-year-old should have heard it 7 times, at least. Are you getting the picture? That the more you hear it, doesn't matter. You have to actually hear it and do it. You have to apply it to your life. But just one reading, just hearing it one time as a 7-year-old child. Now, that's not saying that that's the only time it was done. Because you're supposed to be teaching this stuff every day. You're supposed to be living this stuff every day. So every day is a school day for the children, right? They don't get no breaks for summer. Now, is it too difficult to do this? Is it really that difficult? We've heard that, I can't help but sin. We were born sinners. It's just the way we are. You can't keep all those laws. You just can't do it. How many excuses can we come up with? And remember that an excuse is nothing more than a reason for failure, right? 1 John 3:4 says that not following the Creator's instructions is what sin is. That's the biblical definition of sin. When you fail to follow the Creator's instructions. That really creates kind of a disconnect. Because Moses writes that somebody should be able to hear it and do it. It's not that difficult. But people say, oh, I can't do that. How many people wake up in the morning and Their first thought for the day is, oh, I just have to go commit adultery today. Now, there may be some out there that do that, right?
Right.
How many people wake up of a morning and say, well, I've got to go murder somebody. I've got to go kill somebody for no good reason today. There may be people out here that do that too. But for the average human being, those are not our first thoughts for the day. Hopefully, for believers, your first thought for the day is to wake up and be thankful that you woke up, right? Who are you going to thank? Well, who put you here? If you're not thanking the Creator and praising Him when you get up, maybe you need to visit GiveGod90.com and start taking those suggestions and applying them to your life. If the instructions are so easy, a 7-year-old hearing it for the first time could hear and do, what's the reason that we fail as older children? I didn't say that. I didn't misspeak there. I said that on purpose. As older children, being children of the Almighty, what is our excuse? What are you going to say when you stand to be judged? Think about this. My pastor said, well, that's not going to be a legitimate reply because you should be able to hear it and do it. Well, my parents said that's not a legitimate excuse because you should be able to hear it and do it. What about my friend or my teacher or this person or that person? Well, that's no excuse because you should be able to hear it and do it. And before you say, well, it's just, they're so hard, there's so much, there's this, there's that. Maybe we should hear from Deuteronomy 30, verses 11 through 14.
This command I give you today is not too hard for you. It is not beyond what you can do. It is not up in heaven. You do not have to ask who will go up in heaven and get it for us. Then we can obey it and keep it. It is not on the other side of the sea. You do not have to ask who will go across the sea and get it. Who will tell it to us? Then we can keep it. No, the words is very near to you. It is in your mouth and in your heart, so you may obey it.
So it's not like it should be unknown or distant. You know what the instructions are. Practically anyone who can read in the world today has the availability of these instructions. There are people out there giving Bibles away free in most languages around the world. Wherever you are, you should be able to get your hands on one in a translation that you can speak or you can read. It might not be the best translation, but it's going to be a reasonably fair translation. You learn the instructions and you go do them, just like you learned whatever it was from your earthly parents. You can learn these from your heavenly parent. When we think back about the way we treat children in the world today and everything that the Bible has to say about children, a lot of times we get the impression that we're talking about young people, right? Like younger than teenagers. I know, well, I'll use myself as an example. And men, let's be realistic. Does any man actually mature past the age of 16? You get older, yeah. But the things you do, Now, think about this. For most guys, the reason you get hurt is because you're 40 and you still think you can do what you did at 16. You might be close to 60 and think you can still do what you did at 16, right? That's what gets guys hurt most of the time, is they think they can still do what they used to do at 16. That's why your bodies are saying you need to slow down just a little bit. I don't mean just stop. You need to slow down a little bit. But be realistic, be honest. Children in the Bible typically talks about everybody. How many times do you open your Bible and you read, "Speak to the children of Israel"? Well, it's everybody. It's not just from teenagers and younger. He was speaking to everybody. While we teach our children to teach their children to teach their children, that process never stops. But the parents are supposed to be informed enough to teach their children. Hopefully they're gaining information as they study, right? Hopefully they're gaining information as they go through the process of life so that they can teach their children, no matter how old they are. Now, the world has kind of taken a weird turn here lately because adult children have decided that they need to care for their elderly parents without learning from them. And adult children who have their own children are listening to people who really don't know what they're talking about. Like, what's the girl's name from England? Greta something. And she says, "Oh, the sky is falling. The sky is falling when it comes to climate change." At 13 or 14 years old, she has no clue. Number one, what causes climate change? She can read a couple of books and, she might be a fairly adept public speaker. But all she is, and I'm going to say it this way, is a prostitute for the climate change crowd. They're using her. They are prostituting her on every stage they can get her on. That is child abuse. Plain and simple. We don't listen to children about scientific things. Unfortunately, around the world, we don't listen to scientists on many scientific things. We like to pick and choose who we get to tell us what information. Oh, wait, we do that with the Bible too, don't we? Ooh. You see where I'm going with that, right? When it comes to instructing children, you've got to understand what you're teaching them. If you don't, is it going to be the same as sacrificing your child to the fire? No. Is it going to be the same as putting your child in a forced labor camp? No. But it's still improper to prostitute a child across a stage for the sake of promoting a single agenda that nobody can agree on. You want to make your point? Give us facts and figures. If the facts and figures don't add up, you probably don't have a valid point. Don't think for a second that we can continue as a worldwide human race and continue to degrade, devalue our children. This whole, we have this thing in the United States called the critical race theory that's being taught where one race is better than the other. Well, when I was in school, they taught us that our differences brought us together and made us stronger. And that's the way that my age group grew up. And unfortunately, we made it so much better that the people who were making money on racial tensions were going broke. So they started all this other stuff. And it comes up from places that you wouldn't expect it, because many Christian churches are falling for this. Many Christian churches are teaching children that the problems of the world are their fault. And that's garbage. The problems of this world belong to the adults of the world, not the children. The children might, as they grow, figure out how to fix it. But that's our responsibility as adult children of the Almighty. We don't have the luxury of time anymore to devalue humanity the way we are. Are there differences in people? Yeah. There's differences between men and women. Yes, I just said that. And there's differences between the way black people live, the way white people live. There's differences between the way black people and black people live in most places. Not all of them act the same way. Not all white folks act the same way. Not all Asian people act the same way. Not all Indians still live in teepees, guys. Okay? Just saying. I've known quite a few now through the years. I don't know any that lives in a teepee. Remember Amy? She had quite a nice house. Mm-hmm. Her father was a contractor. He built them a really nice house. You know, the stereotypes have got to stop, because what you've done is you have promoted this thing to such an extent that it's harmful. Not just for adults, but it's harmful for our children. That we're supposed to be teaching them the instructions we get from the Almighty. And I don't recall any of God's instructions saying, "Thou shalt not treat that person like your neighbor." Is that in there anywhere? I don't remember reading that, and I think I've read just about the whole thing now. As I don't think it's there. When we think about raising our children, when we think about taking care of our children, if we don't learn the instructions and live the instructions we get from the Almighty, humanity will fail. And we are witnessing that in our world today. Not just in the United States, not just in Europe, all over the world. All you have to do is look around and you can see it. Just look around and you will understand it. There is evil in the world, and there will remain evil in the world until things drastically change. But here's the thing. We can keep it at bay if you are willing to learn the instructions and do them. And they're not that hard. John says they're not grievous at all. They're not difficult. Moses says they're right here in front of you. All you have to do is hear it and do it. So it's not just the kids, it's us too. Okay? Did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a safe week.
Absolutely. Until Thursday, when we come back at 7:30 in the evening, Eastern Time. Many, many blessings, everyone.